How are you dressing?
Good, how are you? I love your jacket.
Thank you. Up here, talking to Tina.
Excellent.
Hey, Tara.
I have show and tell for you.
I love show and tell.
And,
Yard signs?
your sign, no, your signs are in my car. I didn't bring them.
I saw your truck. Does it say Army White on it?
You can't miss it. You can't see through the windows.
I'm pretty sure Gretchen cursed at me.
I
was
did.
pulling in.
I did purchase it. Oh my God.
Like, that's cool.
And I'm always impressed. She always backs into the spots. With that big Jeep.
That's one?
Yeah.
Okay, I hate to be sexist, but I've noticed that mostly with men.
They always.
Skip me.
My husband does the let's.
Let's call this meeting to order. Everybody get together. We'll open the Human Services Committee meeting with any courtesy of the floor. Hearing and seeing none, we'll move into the update from the Drug and Alcohol Department.
Would you like an update from Sarah Clark first or Kathy Gurley? Excuse me.
Introduce them first,
Sure can.
because for the people that don't know.
Sarah Clark is back from 2 weeks ago. She's director and owner of Kudu Creative and did our fentanyl awareness campaign. And you saw the campaign when she was here a couple weeks ago. She has brought with her tonight, the analytics from the campaign for the month of February to go over briefly. And Kathy Gurley is the Drug and Alcohol Administrator, and Gretchen Hill is the Deputy Director of Drug and Alcohol. Do you have a preference on?
Kathy,
Okay.
I've been waiting to hear from her for a long time.
Oh, thank you. I'll hand those out for you. Thank you. Have one? Those are yours. Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mobile outreach.
So as Sue had mentioned, I'm just going to quickly review the opioid settlement plan as I did in July. So in front of you, you will see just a basic breakdown of some of the initiatives that we have brainstormed to use our opioid settlement dollars. Our first one was the fentanyl awareness campaign, which I believe you are aware of. Our second one is our mobile outreach van called Hope One. We do have some basic outline of costs in the right-hand column. However, those were just guesstimates. So we do not anticipate that the mobile outreach van will cost as much as portrayed, but we were just trying to figure out roughly with the ideas we had, rough dollar amounts. So going down, we have our substance abuse prevention for our youth, which is doing some more prevention programming with our prevention providers in the schools, Valley Youth House, Center for Humanistic Change, and Caron Foundation. Moving on from there, we have our recovery centers, some improvements that we need at our recovery centers moving forward, getting AEDs in all of the sites, making them handicapped accessible, increasing storage, upgrading technology. And we do have one or two locations that we're looking at that could, in a few years, require us to move to a new location. Landlords refusing to fix leaky windows, et cetera, things like that, that we are not gonna pay to replace. Moving on, we want to expand veteran services here in Northampton County. And we'd like to also provide some sort of recovery center / drop-in center and have it address both drug and alcohol and mental health. We want to work more on establishing an adolescent recovery center, getting more services for younger folks. You know, the 16 to 21 folks really don't have a place to go because our recovery centers are a lot focused on the older population, the adult population, the the 25 and over. Recovery events over the next 10 years, certified recovery specialist in CYF. So with the increasing numbers of drug cases or parents using drugs or children exposed to drugs in our CYF division, we want to embed a CRS, a certified recovery specialist, so that we can help parents get access to treatment from the door as opposed to waiting until they are court-ordered or until their children are taken away. We want to enhance our school-based drug and alcohol services. We would like to enhance our certified recovery specialists and incorporate them in college campuses and our counseling offices. And then we want to enhance our intervention services. We really don't have any kind of formal intervention services. Our outpatient providers do offer groups and counseling, but there's nothing along the lines of like intervention services prior to someone really developing a substance use disorder. Founder's Day event, Rally in the Valley, some of those were added to the list as ideas. I'm not sure if we're going to continue to pursue them. I know Rally in the Valley did not take place this year due to other things going on with the folks that arranged those events. Danny's Ride is our transportation service, so we're looking to increase their contract, do some on-the-job training at the Fowler Center Fab Lab, purchase AA and NA workbooks for all of our recovery centers, and scholarships for expenses for sober livings, recovery houses, and things of that nature. And then marketing materials. So that's just a brief overview. We put our most exciting projects, our most expensive projects towards the beginning because that is when we're going to get the bulk of our funds. So this is over 18 years, so not every project is going to begin this year. We're going to kind of go through them in sequential order, which is why we also started with the fentanyl awareness campaign. We figured that that needed to be forefront. That is an issue. That is a huge problem right now, so that needed to be first, and then we're going to move on from there.
So this is the first allotment. My understanding is that there's phase 2 and then maybe plus. And this number seems lower than what we were originally told. So is that because it just got adjusted in some way? We were told 11 million plus.
What's on there?
10.5.
Oh, it's around 11.
Yeah, so the rough number, like I said, they were rough numbers that we just put numbers in initially just to see if, with all of our ideas, how much it would ballpark cost. So our settlement is around 11 million, and we do have the additional funds from the district attorney's office. Certainly, if we have additional monies, we will come up with additional ideas and enhance some of the projects we already have.
But that doesn't address the other money that's coming in. So that's the first round. My understanding is there's 3 other settlements and that there's actually more money coming.
So we can only bank on what we know of. So the first settlement is the $11 million over 18 years, and that's the only money that we have made a plan for. We did hear that there was at least 1 or 2 other settlements, but right now they're still in process. So we can't make a plan for those because we don't know if it's going to be the same time frame, if it's going to be the same thing with trust, a trust and trustees, if it's going to be over 18 years, and what our allotment would be of those proceeds.
So doubling back then, the short films and videos we haven't seen yet, you haven't developed. All we've seen is number 3 under the prevention, correct? And that's what you showed us last time at county council?
Yes.
What's the cost per year to run one of the recovery centers? Or do they vary based on location and services?
They do vary based on location and services. So we pay a lot of money in rental space because we don't own any of the recovery center's buildings outright. So for instance, the Oasis is the old farmhouse off of 512. That rent is substantially higher than, say, Palmer Recovery Center because that is just 1 floor in a building. So every center has varying cost.
Can you give us a frame of reference, like what is the Oasis operating cost compared to the Palmer facility? Just so we have something to go off of.
I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but I can get them for you.
Appreciate it, thank you.
When you say adolescent recovery services, what are you referring to?
So we have started partnering with Reach Lehigh Valley, which is an adolescent recovery center that operates out of Lehigh County on Emmaus Avenue. So we have opened up the upstairs space at the Palmer Recovery Center to start doing adolescent groups with some of our juvenile probation clients and our high school kids. We're trying to build an audience, build a group. If we get people coming in, we can enhance services. But we don't have enough buy-in from the adolescents right now, and it's a struggle with transportation and some other factors to get kids to actually come to a recovery center, to meetings and other things.
So again, are you talking about an APG? Are you talking about a group for probationers? Like, what are you specifically?
Right now, it is a group that they do twice a month. But what we're hoping is that there is such a need for adolescents who need substance use disorder treatment and support that we would hope that we could grow a whole recovery center to be an adolescent recovery center where there would be supports for just adolescents. But we're not there yet.
And then, so is Reach the contact for that, or is it a county-based person? Because I would think that if, with all the school-based people we have, that there would be a feed other than, or are you trying to keep the populations pure?
No, the issue is right now, Reach Lehigh Valley operates out of our Palmer Recovery Center. They do the 2 groups a month. The problem is that, for example, Palmer Recovery Center, right across the street from Easton High School. We can have kids come over for group, but once they leave the school grounds, they are not eligible to go back to school to get a late bus home. We have very few parents that can get off of work to transport kids to and from groups at the recovery centers. So it becomes a transportation issue. Not every kid that comes to the recovery center would be able to drive, so we would need to figure out the transportation issues in addition to the services that we would offer.
So the money that's allocated is for what purpose?
We're hoping to be able to start a recovery center at some point. We're not there yet.
A freestanding dedicated to that, eh? Do you have any concerns about mixing 16 to 21? I mean, there's pros and cons.
So yes and no. So right now, our rule is that we cannot mix anyone underage. So generally speaking, if you're 18 and over, you can go to our recovery centers. If you are under the age of 18, you are not permitted at our recovery centers when there are adults there, which is unique with the Palmer Recovery Center because we're 2 different floors. So those folks are definitely separated. I do have concerns with a 14, 15, or 16-year-old being with a 20 or 21-year-old, but
Especially in that world.
you know, there's only so much separation we can offer.
Understood. Go ahead, I have thousands.
something
I'll let
that's
you
on the-
jump in. Go
I
ahead.
just don't understand
I'll
the
vote right.
hesitancy to put a 19-year-old with a 25-year-old, but I see a lot of problems with putting a 16-year-old with a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old. Can you explain your, the rationale with that?
So I think I think what people assume is that if a 20 or 25-year-old is in the same group as a 14 or 15-year-old, that they will then learn their tricks and you know, establish things that they may not have learned. Same can be true of a 25-year-old going to an AA group with a 55-year-old person, right? It's the same kind of thing, right?
Well, I just think the difference is when you're dealing with minors, I think that is a distinct line that once you cross that threshold of 18, the rules are changed completely, but everybody under the age of 18 has to be held in kind of a separate
Yes,
class.
yes.
I know this is all very preliminary, so I'm not gonna.
Thank you.
I'm with him, but not really. I understand. I get it. Well, no, because some of those kids already have plenty of tricks. So, but I'm more worried about the liability of somebody under the age of 18. But then, recovery center's not considered treatment, correct? So like the rules that apply, like the age of 14 of consent do not apply in a recovery center, correct?
No.
That's what I thought. And then when you say intervention services, what's your definition that you're using for intervention? Because, in the recovery world, there's two meanings, so I'm just trying to get it.
So intervention groups, so a lot of folks call us looking for, I don't want to model it after like TV, right? Like you have the family, they want to have a come to Jesus with a family member who's struggling with something. Maybe the family doesn't know what it is, like a legitimate intervention. We know something's not right with you. We don't know. There have been other county agencies that have said to me, we do have this, we do contract out. It seems to be helpful when, a family wants to pull everybody together and kind of have an intervention of sorts. We're not quite there yet. We don't have a provider that would do that yet. But, it's something that we were thinking, if we can get people from the beginning before it becomes a huge problem, we can't not explore that.
So you weren't thinking of intervention, just actual treatment? You were thinking of the classic intervention?
Yes. Nothing's off the table, though. I mean, it's a little ways down the list.
My concern is, this is a lot of money, and this is your chance to do what you need to do. And I think there's a lot of really neat, creative things here and stuff that we've waited to do for a long time. And APG has been needed for a long time. And I understand the transportation is always the hesitancy, but, build it and they'll come, we'll find a way. The other thing is the school-based folks. Are you looking to contract your own, or are you looking to network with who exists, or there's people that will offer it, but they're not in the schools? Like, who's providing school-based DNA specific?
Right now, Recovery Revolutions is doing a lot for us.
And how many schools are they in?
They're in Easton schools and Bangor schools. Right now, yeah.
And you don't have, is Mars not contracted with you?
Mars does contract with us, but not for school-based.
for
They,
school.
they do intervention groups, but they do them at their offices. They're not in the schools.
Okay. That's a small number. Anybody else want to jump in? I have 100 questions, but I'll let somebody else. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had one about the advertising portion of this. I did see the billboards on 22 and 33. I guess when I was a kid, they used to fry an egg and say, "This is your brain on drugs." All it did was make people scared of fried eggs. I guess the question that I have is, I think the way to reach kids now is like a TikTok video or an ad in front of YouTube. I don't see that in here. How do you reach the younger population, given the consumption of social media that they do?
So I'm going to defer to Sarah just with that.
Hi, Sarah Clark, good evening. Hope the county's well. So, yes, you are right. That is how we plan to reach the younger demographic. We just launched the website. It's been live for a month now. We have started our social media campaigns on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And what we do is we call it Season the Pixels. We make sure we get a good following base. We make sure people are starting to see the message, the word's getting out now by the billboards. So I know that that's like, well, that's probably not geared towards a 13-year-old, but a 13-year-old might be in the car with mom and dad that are also driving down the street and seeing it. So there's multiple touch points for marketing. We do have plans to shoot video. We're going to do a long form, 30-second and a 15-second. And those three types of forms can be used across all digital platforms. So that's website, that's social medias, within any sort of county materials. So Does that answer your question? in terms-
Yeah, I think so. I mean, kids watch these dumb videos on TikTok. I see it constantly. And usually, and same thing, YouTube, there's usually like a short clip in front. I think that's what I see kids watching, a lot of that stuff these days. And I think that would be the way to hit them. I don't, you know.
It's currently there. We have a YouTube channel. We have 3 digital shorts up there right now. But it's more so facts that are animated versus actual like professional videography, where it's a 30-second commercial that we could place media for.
Okay, so like I said before, back in the day, you'd listen to a fried egg sizzle. How do you capture these kids? How do you capture them and get them to actually pay attention? Because there's so much that they're absorbing through their phones particularly.
We have target marketing in place. So we get to choose the demographics and who sees our messaging, how old they are, where they're located. So we have located the county of Northampton, and then just special areas in addition to that. So like Bangor, because they might not get as much attention as Easton or Bethlehem. So we tend to push the targeting towards that demographic so that they see the message. Also, just visual design is geared towards that demographic. So when they see that 15-second commercial, they pay attention, they look. We wanted to scare them with facts and not scare them with a hypothetical fried egg, like in my childhood, which did not much. So now we want to bring the facts, right? This is really happening. It's unavoidable. The graphics and the color palette appeal to the demographic, and the media buy and the ad placement is parked where they're going to see it.
Yeah, the other thing I can remember was like trying to scare people, particularly with smoking, where they showed somebody, you know.
Well, the voice
Yeah.
box, yeah.
Is that still part of the messaging that we do as far as opioids go?
We decided to leave the Grim Reaper out of our ads this year. We wanted to just present the facts, you know, real life situations versus concepts of death and what could happen, because a lot of times people are looking at them, especially the younger kids, and thinking, well, that can't happen to me. So they don't see themselves in that.
Any other questions, Mr. Cusick?
One completely different, but if you had a
No, go ahead,
follow-up
go
with her. This one more had to do with the money that's being spent for the veterans, and I
Oh, I
guess.
do have one question for Sarah, but I was.
Yeah,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
I thought- I understand fentanyl is the big focus on this campaign. But the more, like, I coach a lot of high school, junior high, and young kids, and I don't think they fully understand, you know, especially when you talk to, you know, or being a kid myself, you know, understanding alcoholism as a teenager, it doesn't make sense how you become addicted to a substance like that until, you know, you get a little further along in life and alcoholism can become an addiction. Do these kids understand how addiction works? Do they understand how quickly with pain pills and, you know, opioids, how quickly addiction sets in and the realities with that? And is that a part of the campaign?
I'm going to let Kathy
Okay, I
speak
didn't
to
know
that.
who was the expert on that one.
All right, so while we don't include that in our campaign, we do touch on that with our prevention providers who are going into school health classes. And they're talking about current drug trends, they're talking about the dangers of addiction. That is part of our SAD program and those kinds of things. I agree. I don't think kids understand that continuing to do something like that can cause an addiction. So that's why we're trying to educate them, but that's not part of this campaign.
No, that's fine. I mean, and this was a completely different question. And this is I believe it's $1 million for the veterans and then another 200,000 to expand veterans services. Will you be working with our Veterans Affairs folks here? And how does that tie in with things that the VA offers?
So what we were hoping to do is we were also hoping to, I mean, this is a lofty goal, right? So this is not a today or tomorrow project, but just like the Adolescent Recovery Center, we wanted to open a Veterans Recovery Center, which would focus on mental health, drug and alcohol, and we would certainly include our, Alex and our Veteran Services Department, because they've been a great partner in working with us in other avenues. We have been on some conference calls with the VA. There are a lot of case managers and folks at the VA offices that are willing to help out and support an initiative like this. So I'm not totally sure how we would tie everything together, but it is definitely a conversation we've been starting to have.
I think it's great, but like I said, I'm just wondering, 1.2 million is a lot of money, and it seems to me now that it's not something that you're really firm about.
So like I said before, these were all just ballpark numbers.
Again, I think just to add, we have to remember it's over 18 years, right? So we got the first $500,000, and then the second payment of another roughly $500,000. So last year, at the end of the year, we got about $1 million. So if you really averaged it out over 18 years, it's about $500,000 a year, give or take. And so it certainly makes it a little harder to know today what we are going to need in 10 years or 12 years or so on and so forth. So hence a large, comprehensive list of ideas and trying to go in some sort of order. We can tell you that the Hope One outreach van is definitely next on the list of projects to tackle. The rest of it over time, if needs change, we will certainly adapt accordingly. But yeah, we don't have the whole pot of money to just spend now, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Myers and then Mr. Heckman.
This
I'll just go down the lane.
veteran expansion, veterans, we already have this. This is going to be in addition to, because we already have drug and alcohol counseling at the VAs for our people that are veterans now, plus post-traumatic. So this is an addition to, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
So this is going to add another layer that can help those of us who served, right?
Yeah, I have a few things, but I'd like to talk to the PR person now. I saw the billboards too, and I guess the question I have is, and yeah, the ads, and by the way, it was a nice, beautiful egg, that this is your brain, and this is your brain on drugs when it hit the frying
Another
pan.
sizzle,
But
the sizzle.
But, you know, I mean, and I'm old enough to know how many of these campaigns, Reefer Madness, the movie, and they even actually showed that in the 50s yet. And also the Nancy Reagan with Just Say No. And so and we got to try things. I'm dubious about public relation type of, or media things for drug addiction or using drugs. I know when I have to drive somewhere, I have to be very careful, because now young people, they'll walk into the middle of the street looking at their phones. So I don't know if they're in a car on 22, how many aren't doing the phone or a game system. So, I mean, the billboards are nice, and I've seen them. I don't know how effective they'll be. They're certainly splashy. I think what you said, though, about getting out there, are these videos going to be made available to the schools, or are we going to let the school, especially, I would say, elementary and middle schools, that they can have access to this? I mean, I know it's going to be put out there on, you mentioned you're going to put it on
YouTube and also the website.
but will we specifically let them know that you can make this part of a lesson plan if you want? And, okay.
So we did talk to our prevention provider, Center for Humanistic Change, who does all of our SAP, our student assistance program stuff in our schools, and deal with the kids who have drug use, substance use, mental health, behavioral issues. So I did ask them to create some kind of fentanyl awareness training, because we have all these posters and they're hung all over the place, right? And I said, we need to explain what that is about, and we need to enhance their understanding, rather than just seeing a poster, rather than just saying no, rather than seeing the egg. We need to explain what it is and why it's a problem. So I actually just met with them, Center for Humanistic Change today. They said, you know, the folks at Easton just saw the posters, they just saw the billboards. They want more, they want us to come in, they want us to explain. So that's exactly what we were hoping by launching the campaign, is that it would lead to more questions. So we're starting to create programming that we honestly didn't plan to do initially, but now, you know, it's just another piece that we're like, yeah, we need to get this in the schools, teach it in the health classes, and have the kids have a better understanding of it.
Yeah, I guess, and I mean, look, if you're tasked by us, the county, to do what you have to do, you're doing it. So I'm not judging your campaign. But over the years, having been involved with programs and you know, talked to people who have been addicted, people who frankly were dealing drugs and whatnot, that what can we do, you know, what's going to happen? Most of the time, some of the efforts made to go out there and publicize something fell on deaf ears, only because, for example, people who've worked, and I haven't worked specifically in drug and alcohol, but I've been involved with it. They get into this thing where, oh, great, here's the new drug of choice that we're all going to go nuts about and spend money. And, you know, it was this, now it's this, it was oxycodone, and now we have this new one. And they become suspicious. They think it's, even though you're not doing it, it's a scare campaign. And, oh, everything has fentanyl in it now. So now if you get close and rub fentanyl, you're going to die. And I think that's important too, that you're trying to get them here and then we take over from there. So I think that when you said you're working and you're putting it into the schools and you're keeping it to 15 seconds, because I think with the modern, we see that with other things at the county now. The generation now is very different from past generations, and, for example, attention span. And I think that's part of the point here, that, you know, somebody from the 70s maybe or 80s might take some more time, but now if it's not like a TikTok or something that just flashes, I'm on to the next thing. So you answered that, and I appreciate that. But I do have a question yet for Kath that I'd like to get as long as I have the floor. I was curious, has there been any thought to, once this started, and I always like to get involved and keep myself up to date, and realized I didn't know enough about this. And so I was reading about the naloxone, the actual, you know, base drug, that Narcan is one of the brands. Now you can get Narcan over the counter.
Correct.
And I'm going to just spitball, I'm going to throw this out to you. Is it possible that we should have a program where, I know we want to do big things, we all want to do things, but should some of these funds possibly be targeted to making it available for people, private citizens, to get Narcan? Because it doesn't hurt you. I mean, if somebody thinks that way, I mean, right now we talk about EMS, we talk about people who get Narcan and fire departments and whatnot. Well, if I'm a parent and I know my child is involved in drugs, I can talk till I'm blue in the face and it's probably not going to make a difference. I've talked to too many parents where that's been the case. But I can have Narcan in the house. I can have Narcan.
Correct.
And because if I go up to somebody's room, which has happened in people's lives, and I have an unresponsive teen or younger preteen, I can administer Narcan and we can go from there to your treatment
Correct.
center. Has that been considered or discussed?
So that's twofold or more. So as part of our fentanyl awareness campaign, there is a link on the site where folks can get Narcan and they can get trained on Narcan. So we have trainings that we offer at least twice a month at the county building, where folks go through a 1-hour training with one of our providers, and then they are given a box of Narcan with 2 doses in it, prior to leaving. So that is a way that anyone in the community can reach out, can get the training, can get the Narcan. We've also, at Drug and Alcohol, applied for a grant through PCCD, where we can become a centralized coordinating entity. And basically what that is the Department of Health, when we request Narcan, they will give us free Narcan that we can distribute in any way we see fit. So we were already brainstorming some ideas, doing like a drive-through Narcan distribution in the county, much like we do shredder events or, take-back events of other sorts, doing that to get it more widely available and out there to the public. So those are some things that we are working on. We can use settlement money if we need to, but I'd just rather go through the other avenues because essentially the Department of Health is giving it to us.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'd rather have them give it to us than,
And the drugstores are doing the free, and I guess part
Correct.
of that could be part of our public relations, in that, can we also direct people? Like, I know you're saying training and getting in, and you know as well as I do, there are people who will show up, who will go through the training, will take it, and there are people who will say, no, I don't have time for that. What do we do that? That, hey, you know what? You can go to a drugstore and just ask for it, because they're starting to give these. I just want to get. I guess I want to get Narcan in the hands of people who are really know what's going on in their house. I've never met such helpless folks as the parents of kids who have an issue with any type of drug. And oftentimes they feel powerless, and they're just waiting to run into that problem. And I know we look for programs because we're very program-oriented. That's part of us in government, it's part of human services. It's not a program, it doesn't exist. But I think sometimes simple is even better. And I would just like us to consider as you go, because I know, and I know this isn't put in stone, you've made that very clear, but just having Narcan available for anybody who wants to walk in and, hey, you can go to a drugstore. You don't even need to talk to us. You don't have to talk to the government. Because more now than since I remember for many years now, the government now, we're back into your bad situation. They're going to keep track of you. They're going to put you in some kind of file. Bypass us. Go to the drugstore if you have to. I'm just thinking for myself, based on my own experience, it might be helpful if as we go forward, to at least consider that.
yeah, we can certainly look at a way to link it to our fentanyl awareness website and put it out there for folks if it's an easier option for them.
And I just have something here with recovery centers, and it's a question based on a past experience. When folks come to a recovery center and they're going through, especially the younger ones, I remember a dealer telling me once, a great place to find new clients is hanging around the recovery centers, because because it's a ready-made market. I mean, most of them we know are going to fail, and so I think it's great, and I think the point was made. Definitely, we got to keep the minors away from. That's 100%. I mean, just from a legal standpoint, I absolutely. But keep like one floor, another floor. But do we have, when the people are there and they're running it, and people come in, they leave, they go back out, come back in, do we have some kind of, I don't want to say security, it's a strong word, but do we have some kind of system of order where we're watching, keeping track of who's coming and going and the area around the building?
So yes and no. So the meetings that are run, so the AAs, the NAs, the Smart Recovery, those meetings are run by qualified meeting holders. They are all persons in recovery, and people in recovery know what to look for other folks. So they have been very instrumental in notifying us when there is suspicious behavior, or, I mean, there was a gentleman, I believe, at one of the recovery centers at a meeting that just collapsed on the floor. They Narcaned him. You know, they called EMS, that kind of thing. So we don't have security per se, but our folks who attend the meetings are generally not people who just attend one meeting and you never see again. They are regulars, they're there all the time, they know exactly what to look for, they know who should be at their meetings. Like, they're the best gauge of suspicious activity. So we really rely heavily on them
Okay, well,
to keep us posted.
thank you, and thank both of you. I mean, and I don't want to, I hope I didn't come off critically.
No.
Because I'm like, I know you have one of the more difficult situations in social services. Drug and alcohol dependence, it's just a hard nut to crack. I mean, I know how much effort goes into what you're doing and what you try to do, and it's a never-ending job. And I think what you're trying to do and like throwing ideas around is great because, you know, hopefully we can, even if we stop some new people come getting in, and hopefully maybe some folks who are now involved. I think the idea of the fentanyl, it's dangerous, but I think, you know, you're doing it in a way that doesn't freak people out, because as has been mentioned before, it seems like with young people, the more you freak them out, the less serious they take it. Like, you know, if I get within 5 feet of this fentanyl pill, I'm gonna collapse. It's like, no, you won't. You probably could hold it and you won't collapse. The thing is, I did a lot of work reading up on it because fentanyl's new to me. I mean, I heard of it, but I didn't really understand it until I read up on it. And so I think that having that measured response, and the tough thing, of course, is reaching out and getting the young people and getting their attention to begin with and to get involved. So thank you both for the information, and good luck. Anything we can do to help.
Thank you.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. So to what extent is this opioid money supposed to be targeted just to opiates and not any other drug? Because I see like some drug and alcohol mentioned. So how do you separate that?
So as part of the settlement, there was a board of trustees, and in the board of trustees, they gave us the Exhibit E. So Exhibit E is basically a step-by-step outline of everything we can use the settlement dollars for and everything we cannot use the settlement dollars for. So that is essentially our guide. We look at what idea we have, we look through Exhibit E, we see where we can fit it in, and if we can't fit it in, it can't be used in this capacity. So if we want to continue with that project, we have to find another funding stream. But generally, when we looked at our Exhibit E, we looked at all of our ideas, and somewhere in Exhibit E, we can make them tie together so that we can utilize the funds.
So when you say adolescent recovery or recovery events, they're not just for opioids. They could be for any sort of drug and alcohol, drug addiction.
Correct.
Okay. And so how does, I really feel like there's some complications, especially when you go into the school systems. Now we have medical marijuana. There's potential for adult recreational. There's a bill in legislation to legalize mushrooms. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot that's coming down the pike, and I remember the commercial, not about the egg, but about the guy with the box that opens the box in the kid's room, and the kid says to him, "I learned this from watching you." If you remember that one.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was the one that was targeting the parents who were using the drugs and showing their children basically that behavior. Now, we know with opioids that children sometimes get a hold of them because their parents had them, and maybe because of an injury or some other pain medication that they had. But I've heard of kids going to parties and just dumping them in a bowl, pharmaceuticals in a bowl, and just whatever comes out, that's what they're taking. So how is it that this is going to help not only the crisis that we see pending with kids and students, but with their parents and the education in the home of the parents to the children who are kind of exposed to this culture?
So that's where our prevention providers are really working with the parents. And we've developed a prevention plan where we're targeting parents and having them understand that your children see what you do. So even though you're okay with your friends, your kids' friends coming over and drinking at your house, like that's not acceptable, that's not okay. Kids learn a lot by the actions that they see of their parents. So we're really trying to target some prevention programming towards parents and families to have them understand like their perception of use, what use is, and what they reflect to their kids is not okay. So
Well, that's a gray line, or a gray
Yes.
area now.
Yes.
Because you have individuals smoking medical marijuana in front of their kids that for the longest time, we thought that was drug. Or we designated it as a drug. It's literally a Schedule I drug, the same as opioids.
correct.
But now it's okay for medicine. So my mom, not my mom, but my mom's taking her medicine. That seems like a really complicated issue that we have, that we're facing now, especially when you're talking about a crisis that we're attempting to fund.
It is. I'm not going to say I have an easy answer because that is what we struggle with ever since the legislation came down to legalize medical marijuana. I mean, in some recovery circles, if you're using medical marijuana, you're not abstinent, so you're not in recovery. So that's a whole nother, ball of wax there. So
Well, I think there has to be some sort of ball of wax. Yeah, there has to be some sort of education about what medicinal value drugs have as opposed to the dangerous aspects when you take something that's not prescribed to you, you take something that's not for you, or your body's not ready for. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I hear things because my kid's 13, and he is in middle school, and I hear about the kids vaping, and I hear about what's in their vape pens, and it's not always what you think it is because they got it from somebody that they knew. And so this is a real concern because it's not just about opioids, it's about a lot of things that people are getting a hold of. And even our veterans are taking things that are, easing their pain because they have pain. And so how do you make that distinction that this is what you could take for pain, this is what you can't take for pain, this is what you can transition from? I see this as like a really monumental problem for you. And I commend you for tackling it, but this is huge. And, I'm really interested to see how this unfolds because I know that fentanyl is a huge problem. And I think the campaign is really good. And I think we have to do a lot of education to the masses for all of these reasons. So thank you.
we are working on it.
Yeah, I see.
No
that.
easy answers, but we are working on it.
So this $10 million represents the entirety over 18 years, right? So that's the half.
Roughly, yes. So we're supposed to get a little over $11 million.
Okay, and for instance, this $500,000 then would be over 18 years. Right. Wow. So it's really not as much as it looks on paper? Like right now,
Exactly.
it looks like a lot, but it's
Exactly.
really not that much.
Because we're not getting all 18 million right now. We're
Right.
getting it in small increments over 18 years. So some years we get larger sums of money, and some years we get smaller sums of money. So that's why we had to kind of plan out and do our bigger ticket items first, because we're getting larger sums of money in the beginning, and it's going to kind of fall off towards later.
And how are you targeting communities who might have been, you know, disadvantaged or targeted by drug use, like urban centers and things like that?
So
I know Bangor has a huge
that's,
opioid crisis.
that's where Hope One comes in. So Hope One is going to be our mobile outreach vehicle, which is going to go into all of those areas that are underserved, that those folks are not coming into our centers, they're not reaching out for assistance. That is literally like, if you won't come to us, we will bring it to you.
But how do they, okay, so it's not like an ice cream truck that you go and like ding a bell and like people come out and say, oh, we need services. Like, how do they come and know that that is the mobile service for them? Do you know what I mean?
So we have a lot of staff, we have a lot of programs that do a lot of outreach. They do outreach with the police, they do outreach in the schools, they do outreach with the homeless, they do outreach with the hospitals, they do outreach in a number of different areas. So all we can do is do as much outreach and community involvement as we can and let people know these services are available, and then make ourselves readily available in those communities, get the word out, and then people will come.
So outreach connects individuals to the services, like schedules an appointment or something like that, and then the services go to them.
It's as simple,
designated area.
it's as simple as our PAIR program goes out to the homeless encampments. They give out cards and flyers. You know, they also give like a goodie bag with like water and an apple or whatever they give, right? So it's, you may not be ready now, you may not need any services, but if you ever do, here's my number, this is where I'm at, come in and see me. Folks have come in to see the folks that have given them their cards, that have given them during outreach.
So you have found that that is an effective
Yes,
strategy? So people
yes.
who do want help
Yes.
will eventually connect to it?
Yes.
Okay. Because I was just wondering what the effectiveness of that was. Like, how do you seek the people out? How do they find you? And
Although I will tell you, like, for the homeless population, right, it's sometimes can be a feat for them to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So bringing the services right to them at point A, all they have to do is walk up.
But is that same mobile service the same as like if somebody needed, like we've heard people talk about like the bus services are not available, like let's say in Bangor in that area, where they can't get to their appointment, which is at a center over here or in Easton or something like that. So would that mobile unit then bring, what is that called, Suboxone to them?
So it depends, I mean, we're working on setting up partnerships. So that way we can have, you know, healthcare providers, case managers, CRSs, and other partners available. So if we can't bring it to them, we can certainly direct them with, here's a bus pass, here's how you're going to get to this, or we'll follow up with you when you need it. So I don't know that we can distribute medication off of
Yeah, that's what-
StedVan, but all in the works, depending on who we partner with.
Yeah.
To do this.
There's a lot there. Thank you.
I want to pull this back and just remind us of our time limits. We need to end close to 6:15, and we have two other items on the agenda. So I know a couple people have other questions. I have some comments. I also wanted to give Kathy an opportunity to talk about non-opioid funding services, because there's so many of those, but I'll ask some questions that I think will infuse that. So John, and then Kerry, and then it's going to come back to me.
Well, I usually don't disagree with what Mr. Heckman has to say. He's got a lot of wisdom, but I will say we have to differentiate between, you know, the reefer madness and the just say no and, you know, this is your brain on drugs. I feel like the reefer madness, all that, we were talking about marijuana at a time where we were telling people that it's going to ruin your lives, it's going to kill you, and those are flat out lies. And it's pretty obvious to see that that drug doesn't do that. You know, you said mushrooms getting legal. That drug doesn't do that. And I think you could differentiate because they grow out of the ground and they don't kill people. Methamphetamine, heroin, opioids, these are what we need to be differentiating. We need to be telling these kids. And I know Mr. Myers is an EMT. I'm a local volunteer firefighter, and I don't put out many fires, but we do a lot of drug overdoses. And it's like, put a body cam on an EMT guy in the neighborhoods of Wingap or Easton or any of our neighborhoods. People that these kids can see, like, this is happening here, because it is. I've never seen so many overdoses in my life, and now I'm not seeing as many. And I don't think it's because people aren't doing drugs, but I think it's because people just have Narcan now. So they're doing the drugs, they overdose, they get Narcan, and then they just keep doing it. So I think it's great that people aren't dying. That's a great thing. But I'm a little annoyed that a solution to a pharmaceutical problem, because that's what this was, a pharmaceutical problem that we were exploited by pharmaceutical companies, that's why we have this money, we're rewarding them with more pharmaceutical solutions. And if we don't start scaring kids that they will die, it's like, I can't understand why anybody would want to take methamphetamine. Who thinks methamphetamine's a good idea or a good time? Who thinks heroin's a good, like, these kill kids, and it's like, yes, you could help people with recovery, but I don't see too many people getting better. And it's not your fault, it's not the recovery, it's addicting. You gotta get these kids from ever trying them. That's gotta be the goal. As soon as you start trying it, you're usually headed down a road that you don't come back from. So, yeah, these are a lot of ideas, but I don't see a lot of new ideas. I see a lot of the same, and it's not working. I lose a lot of people that I know from the same thing, and nothing's changing. Like, it's crazy to me. So, just beating that drum, I guess.
I'm going to be real quick. I'm a little surprised and a little annoyed that we've only heard from 2 school districts. The biggest one is Bethlehem and not a nibble. That bothers me. Then you have Northampton, Nazareth, Penn-Argyl. The list goes on and on. How do we reach these folks? Because the bigger school districts are the ones we got to make sure we're making a headway in.
So recently we did, I understand your annoyance. I have the same annoyance. Back when we're doing PACE surveys, we're talking about suicide prevention. All of these schools are reaching out that they want help. We finally have help, and crickets, right? So I did finally make an in with Bethlehem School District. They came and picked up paperwork just this week. So that was a step in the right direction. We have been taking stuff to Penn-Argyl, so we're getting there. It's not as quick as I would have liked, but we're making progress, right?
Okay. I'm good with you there. The only other issues I would like you to take a look at is, because Tara Habner mentioned urban areas, which is where I come in. The Boys and Girls Clubs are very important. The youth organizations are very important. Coaches are constantly stressing that, you can't, we don't want you doing this. But as a guy who's coaching basketball at Wilson, one of my studs got caught in the bathroom vaping. If we can't stop him from vaping, we can't stop him from doing anything else. We have a real problem. I think it's something we all need to look at it seriously and address. The difference between the urban area and the affluent area is, you don't have the guy in the corner sitting there saying, here you go. They're going to somebody's mom and getting it. So, I just think that we need to be more aware of what's happening with that. But I'm going to close this up because, like Ms. Varya had just said, we have a time limit. Thank you.
Thanks. You and I both know about how the school districts are. It's about getting your foot in the door. Sue and I don't have any stories about that at all. Right? Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Put your foot in the door. And if there's any help that we could give, I guess a couple people have touched on some things, and John did in an interesting way, but I just don't believe in scare tactics. And I thought I heard 2 weeks ago, like, I made this a certain way because it's big and it's scarier, but I'm really appreciating what Sarah said tonight, because it sounds like it wasn't just about making it a scare tactic. It's about getting attention and moving on. And if that's where we're going, I'm fine with this. But if we are going to do, I thought of everything all of you said, and I've seen all those campaigns. We know we have to have evidence-based practices everywhere we go, and fear tactics are not evidence-based practices. So if you're using this to get in, like, if that catches the attention and you're doing handouts and supportive materials, and you're gonna get those smaller pieces in the schools and awareness materials, then I'm happy. And we all know that it's not just about fentanyl. Did it start with fentanyl? He said it. It started with pharmaceutical. How many of our kids that are addicted are not addicted because heroin was attractive? They were an athlete who got on a prescription drug and they couldn't get off and they became addicted. And that's 98%. So I am excited about where you're going. Some of the things I'm less excited about. Spending money on Founder's Day. People are going to go to Founder's Day.
No, I know.
And again, I appreciate what your thoughts were. Same thing, some of these fun activity, we need sync, and we need some of those things, but we need treatment. We just need treatment. Anything we could do on this day is to help you establish more treatment options, beds, services, outpatient. I'm all about that APG. Sue knows that. I brought it to her years ago. We're still trying to get it to move. But treatment. People are dying. And I mean, I'm preaching to the choir to you, but this is all fluff. I sit and I hear people say, we couldn't get a bed. There's a way to create beds, pay for beds. The only other question I had, I didn't ask you, sober living in the county, how many sober living facilities do we have? Not recovery centers, but you have a cost here for scholarships for expenses. So how many do we have locally?
So there, two-part question. I'll answer
Sure.
the recovery center, the recovery housing question first. So we have 4 recovery houses that we use as part of our housing program. But now that DDAP passed that regulation where all recovery houses have to be licensed, a lot of the houses that we had, they've shied away from actually continuing to do business because of the DDAP licensing requirement. So right now, we only have 4 licensed programs that we can use. So if we're scholarshiping or we're paying for housing for someone, those are the only ones we can actually use
licensed.
DDAP funding for because they're licensed.
So, but there are, what I've heard, people just buy a house and say, I'm gonna make a sober living house, and people do
Yes.
also live there, right?
Yes. However, we can't use any of our funds for that.
So I'll just move off that. I had a question that had nothing to do with this or sort of something to do with this. Who are key vendors for prevention that you're using? Intervention and postvention, because you have real services you do beyond this stockpile.
So for prevention and intervention, we have Center for Humanistic Change, we have Valley Youth House, and we just added Karen Foundation.
Is that just for kids or?
Well, they do a mix. So they do a lot of prevention in the schools, so that's touching on kids, but it's also doing work with parents and families. They do have some programming where they do with kids in the schools and they do with parents in the evenings, that kind of thing.
And your intervention services?
That would be Recovery Revolutions, Mars, basically our outpatient providers also offer those intervention services.
We're just down to 2? Not
No.
classic intervention, but actual, I mean treatment intervention.
We have Mars, we have Northeast Treatment, we have Recovery Revolution, we have Pyramid. Treatment Trends, Confront. Thank you.
All right, I was gonna we're down to 2?
No.
Hello. Thank you. And then postvention, what kind of aftercare recovery services do we have, other than our?
So we have certified recovery specialists, we have case management, we have our recovery centers, we have sync recovery, we have equine therapy.
What I don't hear are groups.
Mars just started a group called FORT, which is for families. So we do have some providers that are willing to start new groups and start some new programming. So we're working on it.
Okay.
To go back to your question about treatment, if I may. So we are not hearing that anyone is in need of beds that can't get beds. We have plenty of money. DDAP gives us for treatment, so there is no shortage there. And we have a plethora of treatment providers. The longest we've ever had anybody have to wait recently is maybe a day for a bed. So if you do know of people that are not able to get into treatment, give us a call because we're not hearing that.
What I'd be happy to do is meet with you outside of here to talk about where that disconnect might be.
Okay.
Because, maybe they're not using the right channels, or maybe we could have you come back sometime when we're not discussing this money to just talk about that. Because people don't understand how to get those services, and it's not your fault, it's,
Yeah, I think
don't
it's,
know what they don't know.
no, and I think that was one of the questions I was asked when I started here. How do we let people know of our services? And it's usually when they need our services is how they find us. But certainly, if you know of people who are not getting access to beds, that can't, I mean, I realize we're not going to say names here, but that can't wait for an offline conversation. And that's stuff that we should have known about as soon as it happened. So if anybody here is finding that any of your constituents are having any kind of waiting list, please let us know. High copays, let us know, because that is absolutely not our experience here. Ms. Fargo Hefner and I have discussed that briefly. And so we want to make sure if somebody is in fact having that problem, that they can get connected with us. So if anybody is having that issue, please let myself or Kathy know, and we will make sure to help those folks out.
Thank you so much. And you have a staff member here you want to introduce?
Yeah, I just want to introduce Gretchen Hill. She is the new Deputy Director of Drug and Alcohol. So she's picking up things quickly and learning as she goes.
So maybe we'll have you back later in the year, September, and then you can give us some updates on how things are progressing and any other next phases that you're rolling out. in
Okay.
September, October. But thank you again for everything that you're doing and the creativity, Yvonne. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Let's move into, Sue, can we put update from Graysdale and your report together in
Sure.
lightning round?
Sarah, yes, no, I can be brief. Sarah had come tonight and made childcare arrangements to kind of go through some of the analytics of the campaign. Can I give her 2 minutes to just give you a super brief so that she does not been here for naught? Thank you. 2 minutes.
2 minutes, all right. Well, we got to get the screen up. Thank you, Sue.
I don't know if it's on there.
It was and it's gone.
The password is,
It's not
that
going to
it?
be recorded.
All right.
Oh, there, okay.
Legislation 31. Hey, it worked. Okay. Is it the top right one?
I can't see that one.
I got it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so as you know, our campaign launched January 31st. And I have been collecting analytics from about 4 different resources over the last month. It's too early to tell what the true impact is, but I wanted to show you we have systems in place to measure our impact and have the numbers for at the end of the year when we're measuring our effectiveness. Okay, so gonna skip through the creative. We've already established that. It's out in the community. Okay, so to the website, we have our top 10 referrals here. Facebook is number 1. The QRcode.net is number 2. So the QRcode.net is all the QR codes we put on the posters, the rack cards, the bus shelters, everything except for the billboards, because that would probably cause an accident. And how visitors got to the website, right? This is called user acquisition in the marketing category. And so there's direct, right, which is the user types in the URL into the address bar, which is known, which is the highest for acquisition. So we've had 487 people come to the website just in direct traffic. Overall, for 1 month, 734 people visited the website. Organic social, so our social media campaign has been running organically for the last month. We just put budget behind it a couple days ago, but we wanted it to run organically because it's all a part of the strategy. It makes sense. Social media is a bear these days. So 172 people came to the website through just social organic traffic, so no money behind it, which means they're seeing what we're doing. 1 month, 172 people organically. Very nice. Okay, so referral traffic is going to be the backlinks. So for example, if the county's website had fakeisreal.org on their website and somebody clicked it, that's called a referral. And so 40 people came this way. So if any of you are in any organizations that would, want to put that link on their website, it definitely helps out our SEO and more visibility. Organic search, 14 people came this way. That's them just typing into Google or Bing, fake is real. And then we also started a monthly newsletter campaign, and we sent one out last month for an invite to the conference. And then we just sent our first full month newsletter out inviting people to join us for the HOPE trainings and notifying them about future HOPE trainings. 6 people. That's pretty good for just starting out. You'll see these numbers greatly increased through the end of the year. And then we also have specific events. So what actions did the visitors take on the website? Right here, you see video. I don't know if you can see it on your screens, but it's 27,672 impressions, which is really great. And that shows you the value of video, which is in production now. But currently, I had a video on the website. Under the resources, there's a bunch of different videos from other websites. Okay, also what I really like seeing here is number 10 is the downloads. So on our website, we have a marketing media kit, and that's where anybody can download social media graphics to reshare them. Or if they wanted to order a lawn sign for their front door, or let's say their child is using and they don't know how to get through to them, but they want to have Narcan on hand, they can order it right through the website. There's several different routes for that. Which landing pages visited the most? We can kind of steer this, right? Because it all is what we promote. And so right now we're starting with Hope Trainings is what we're pushing right now. And you can see that's in position number 3, and we've had 25 people visit that landing page, which is good because we just started that. So the popularity of the page is going to be the Hope Training. Get Narcan is position number 5. In the future, I'd love to see that to be right behind position number 3, because that includes a lot of engagement. Okay. Facebook and Instagram, reach plus boosting. So we just added budget behind the boosts. You can see that big jump on February 21st. That's what putting money behind social media does nowadays. And it's pay to play. You won't get recognized unless you have money behind your ads. So we seasoned it for a few weeks, and then you can see the effectiveness of putting a little bit of budget behind it. And I believe that was $40. And the Facebook reach right there is 8,000 people, so that's up 200%. And then Instagram reach is almost 9,000, so a total paid reach of 14,000, a little under 14,500 people, which is good. And these are targeted. These are targeted 14 to 35, because I don't think you can target 13-year-olds through social media. We added this to the website since we launched, and this is what I was just describing earlier, is a form to fill out so business owners, parents, teachers, whomever can have access to any of our marketing and educational materials.
Sarah, is there a way that you could send this to us as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm really pushing my time limit here, and I apologize.
Okay, yep. And then we have the monthly, all that left. And then here's the distribution sites too that we were talking about earlier tonight. So I can definitely send that as a PDF. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. You could talk to Linda, or however you want to send it. We
send it.
appreciate that.
I have it.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I appreciate that since she made plans to come.
No, I understand. Thank you.
I just have 2 things for Human Services. I think, Ms. Fargo Hefner, you asked me to give an update on civil service and the ORLTSR, which it seems like that's all we do. Civil service, I had not heard back after I emailed the gentleman January 19th following last January's council meeting. So I followed up with him again, and with the change of administration, of course, there were some lags. So the new secretary for the Office of Children, Youth, and Families starts the 2nd week of March. So the gentleman at the state is hoping to have my approval letter signed before that, but if not, he said it might have to wait until then. So that's that. That's the civil service update. The ORLTSR, there's a litany of construction items that have been finished. I think I mentioned I have Mr. Dertinger involved with that now as well, because we don't speak construction. So they've made significant progress on the remaining items in the last few weeks, and we are getting closer, but I don't have a date, and I think I'll stop giving a date at this point, because then maybe it will actually happen. That was all I had for Human Services.
Any other questions? We do need an update on Greystale. So where are we with admissions? And I think I did, we have asked for financials, so next month I definitely will ask for financial report on Greystale.
I will let Mr. Barron know.
And, but any other questions that the committee has regarding Graysdale specifically that you want answered today?
Is it possible to give us the current census?
I did not think to get that when I was there this afternoon, but it's not changed significantly. It's still around that 403, 405, but we can get that for you.
Okay. And as far as staff, are we,
They just told me in recruitment earlier this week, they onboarded 16 or 17 of our own Graysdale employees in the last cycle, which I think was about 2 weeks ago. So that is,
on board?
I'm going to be, hired and onboarded, so,
okay.
orienting. So that's a lot of our own employees, which is fantastic.
All right, that's good. And if I can just ask you, knowing that drug and alcohol is traditionally the runt of the litter when it comes to funding, I mean, that's how it always was.
I don't think anymore, but
Good. But here's the thing, and you know as well as I do how hard it is. It's a tough nut to crack. Have you talked to children, are children, youth, and family and mental health involved in all of this to help them? Because, I mean, treatment is at the end of the day what it's going to be.
Yeah, the greatest-
I had a good friend who died of opioid addiction, and he was very intelligent. He was, if anybody could be scared out of it, he would have been. And that, my concern was that scare tactics generally never have worked. I wish they would. I mean, it would be great. But, and also then the biological aspect. Some people are more predisposed to addiction than others. So all of those things together, I think the big key is mental health working.
absolutely. Yes,
Okay.
and addiction is a disease. We can't scare cancer away. This is a scary thing, and we need to let kids know and how dangerous it is. But we've embedded some drug and alcohol folks into CYF, which I'm really excited
okay, that's
to
great.
see how that works out in the next
Super.
6 months.
Good. Thank you. That's all I had.
Is there anybody on council that has a specific question or request about financials that you want answered for next month so they can target their response?
You can
For the financials of Graysdale, yeah.
you can email me as well.
All right, so let's set a date, like by mid-March, to have that ready to send to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.
Oh, we have T-shirts, the Vegas Grill T-shirts, so if anybody is interested, we have a bunch of different sizes.